Healing the Wound is a powerful and provocative multimedia art exhibit now showing at the Humboldt Cultural Center through March 3rd. My name is Peter Buckley, and I'll be your host for this edition of Impact, Keats Community Affairs show. Joining us for this show, on your left, is Joey Cusimano, a local Vietnam veteran, a woodworker and artist. In the center, we have Leslie Freeland, coordinator of the show, which has been traveling throughout California. And immediately to my right is Steve Miller, a poetry editor of North Coast View, producer, host, and director of Mad River Anthology on KH2 Radio, and the author of An Act of God poetry book. Steve was in Vietnam from 68 through 70, an infantryman who described himself as part tunnel rat. Before we get into a discussion with our guests, we'd like to take a look at some of the work that's involved in the show. First, we're going to hear a poem from Steve Miller.
Arthur Kawara Kawachika, this is a poem that was read originally at the dedication of the Vietnam Wall when it was brought to Arcata, and I was asked to write something, perhaps one of the hardest pieces I've ever had to write, and dedicated to a Eurekan that died in Vietnam. What can I say to ease the truth of what we both know? Do I speak about how you live on the other side of this wall and can never come out and talk? How you died on my birthday, February 24th, 1971, 22 years after I was born? Do I let my anger show and explain the injustice between death and life? The thought destroyed by a bullet nobody heard until it was too late to say, duck? Should I speak of playing baseball, tell about times fishing, how you caught the salmon running upstream before we lost our childhood to a war which marked its passing? Do I strip away the facade, explain how you really died, mud on your face, stomach in my hands, words falling to earth in soft prayer? Kawachika, talk to me. Tell me what to say to friends, family, who grieve 15, 20 years later, our minds still searching for the smile we knew. Arthur, get off that wall, roll back that stone, and we will bet on the 49ers, raise families, drink beer. You can be anything, a painter, an engineer, the mayor, president of a corporation, a carpenter, a janitor, a teacher, a doctor, a drunk. It doesn't matter. There will always be friends and food, birthdays to remember, weddings, walks where the wind makes the giants laugh. Please, Arthur, tell me that the dead can hear in the cold, brittle silence that surrounds this wall. But you cannot do this. The dead cannot come back and talk to the living. The missing in action are still missing. The suicides are gone. We won't listen to the ones in prison or dying from Agent Orange who keep telling us that once dead, life is over, the mess left to be cleaned up by the wounded. These are the truths of war. The child without a parent or parents, the parents without a child, the wife without a husband, the husband without a wife, the missing uncle, brother, niece, sister, aunt, nephew, grandfather, grandmother, cousin Billy, Jack, Jim, Frank, Bob, Steve, Sally, or Sue. This is what we have come to pay tribute to, the loss of all the humans on and off the wall, the loss of the meaning of what they could have become, of what they were. And so, Kawachika, what can I say? I love you. I have never even met you. That the dead cannot talk, that the living have come to mourn what they cannot speak of, though our tongues move and our eyes water. Will you understand my wanting to touch your name, leave this poem beside your mark on this wall, me giving from this side, you receiving from that, the space between us greater than anything we have ever known.
Thank you, Steve. Well, you'd like to now take a look at two of the pictures by Joey Cusimano that are in the show of Healing the Wound. Joey, maybe you could describe a little bit for us. I think we're looking at the bottom picture first.
The bottom picture? I call that the road to peace, whatever that means. It's just the opposing forces of the United States against Vietnam, and I have in the center the soldier, the one who paid the most for this misfortune.
And the top picture?
The top picture I call the Smile of Angkor, which is the smiling Buddha. Angkor was the Buddha in Cambodia, their religious center. The dragon being the symbolic of Vietnam. Kind of a positive attitude, though. I always had a problem with religions in that misfortune of a war. Which was right, which was wrong, which side was the right one on. I don't know, it just seemed to me that it was real funny how pious one gets when you're that close to death, you know?
It's true.
Yeah.
Did these come out immediately after you got out of the service?
No,
or?
these just came up recently when I found out about the show.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I did a lot of artwork. Most of my drawings are just pencil drawings. Number 2, Ticonderoga.
Well, maybe we could get into the show a little bit. Maybe we could swing it over to Leslie. And Leslie, maybe you could just start off by describing the show for you. You know, I introduced it as a multimedia art exhibit.
That's exactly what it is.
Can you give us some, you know, there's poetry, there's...
It is primarily a visual exhibit with the poetry woven in as part of the visual, but also as a verbal element. What the poetry does in many cases, and this was not intended because we didn't know what was coming in, but the poetry in many cases will give words to what the visual element is about.
Expressing. How did this come about? Why did you feel that there was a need for a veterans art show?
Well, I think that Vietnam, the Vietnam War was a central issue in the lives of the people of the 60s. I believe that all of us who grew up during that time, or who were growing up during that time, were affected one way or the other, and it seemed like in the 70s that sort of went underground, or it was as if the war was over, and we were so sick of it. I'm speaking now of the civilian population. You know, it was a television war and a demonstration war and a media war, and when it was over, what we could do is those of us who did not experience it, we just turned off the TV and said, "That's it." You know, and the 70s sort of just lulled everybody away from what had happened in the 60s, and you know, in the 80s.
So you feel like the show then is a way to bring it back to consciousness?
No, I don't think it ever did go away. I think that it was there all along. My own reinitiation into what had happened came in the early 80s, and by 1987, I realized I was not the only one who needed a healing, and I hadn't been in the war. I mean, I was not a vet, but I realized I could not be the only one who 20 years later
still had a wound existing.
Absolutely.
So the title of the show is Healing the Wound. Do you feel like
Healing the Wounds.
Healing the Wounds. Do you feel like that this is a successful way to go about it, or an effective way to go about it?
Yes, I think it is an effective way to go about it.
Is this art from veterans all through California?
Yes.
And when the show travels, do you try to get local
That's
vets
part of
involved
the
with it?
plan.
Okay.
That what we have a core exhibit, and as it travels through each area, the local residents have an opportunity to contribute their work, and some of it we keep and add to the permanent exhibit, and the rest we return, you know, back to them.
What kind of response have you received from veterans? I'm hitting her with a lot of questions, what do you guys admit?
Wonderful response. There is an openness and a connection, I think, from everybody who who wants to move on with their lives, to connect and you know, I hate to use this expression, but just get real and be real.
And the same sort of response from the community as well, non-veterans as well?
Absolutely. Parents, you know, our parents' generation, the kids, there is just nobody that it doesn't reach.
Huh.
And I couldn't tell you why. That's the way it is.
Huh. Steve, can you tell us a little bit about your war experience and how that became funneled into poetry? And
I'd been writing before Vietnam, always interested in literature as a kid. I was sent to Vietnam for possession of 2 joints or 10 years in a federal penitentiary.
holy smokes.
And didn't really have much choice about it. I was made a tunnel rat out of circumstance because I ended up in the field as an infantryman grunt, and I was small.
You're gonna have to explain what tunnel rat is.
Tunnel rat is somebody that goes inside of tunnels you find
to see what's in.
And it could be any numerous things. It was nice in the sense that if it was raining outside, you're the only one dry. They gave you a flashlight, which only a fool would use in a tunnel. They gave you a headset that wouldn't work underground anyway. So, you know, after I encountered some people in there, I never again brought any people out. And after that, it became less scary and less problematic in the sense that word passed I wasn't going to bring people out to be shot. So that gave them enough time, in my mind, to get the hell out of the way. And that was a fair trade to me.
Did you write in Vietnam?
I wrote in Vietnam after I was taken out of the field through medical reasons. And they found my writings and threatened me with a court-martial unless I were to stop writings and stop sending anything out of Vietnam, which I did. And the original book I published and sold when I first got back to the United States has a cover on me in the stockade wrapped in wire with a machine gun tower in the back and a quote underneath. It's not man's environment that traps his soul, or it's not the environment that traps his soul, but rather the weakness of his own mind. And I still think it is.
You know, we can only brush the surface on a show like this, and you talk about experiences like being a tunnel rat, but a lot of your poetry and a lot of just the way you express yourself, there's so much humor involved. What is the relationship of humor with the experiences you went through? I'm always amazed by it.
I think in my case, I learned that life is so fantastic that one has to laugh even at the sadness in it, and that it is funny. Every animal, every element in the universe is built to die. And I find that funny. I find it funnier that we think we can live.
Okay.
So I hope in the writing there's truth as well as a sense of humor to ease over some of the hard parts.
Joey, when, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Oh,
but
I found a lot of things funny, too. I was a medical corpsman, you know, and I kind of saw the remains of the war.
Huh.
And in that sense, in that same sense, I tried to keep it light and humorous, too, because, you know, in that moment of insanity, in a uniquely insane situation, you had to be funny. You had to find something funny in it.
It was essential. It was absolutely essential.
Yeah, well, you know, with being that close to death all the time is a real tough thing to handle.
Do you feel like, well, I'll hit Joy with this first, but is there any sort of catharsis, or is there any way, do you feel like that you're making a communication through art, through the experiences that you had?
Definitely. I think this show's great. This is something that Vietnam vets need, not only for us to express as artists what we need to express, but for other vets to see.
And other
Because,
people.
yeah, and other, you know, because a lot of other veterans,
Are still afraid.
and they're not as talented. Yeah, and they're not as talented and can't express it in
Yeah,
that
maybe they don't have
form.
an outlet.
Yeah, and a lot of guys don't like to talk about it.
Yeah.
you know, I did some counseling for a while, and it's really, really tough.
I bet.
And I kept it, you know, within my insane humor. And with my drawings, you know, I would, you know, try and help people through the arts. But what were we talking about?
We're talking about just being able to communicate your experiences through art, and
Yes.
you know how important that is.
I think it's great. I think this is an ideal situation. It's something that should have been done a long time ago.
Well, I think maybe perhaps it couldn't have until the time was ready for people to look at it. I think vets get to see ourselves, among ourselves, in a way that we'll joke and kid, but we don't go into details really even among ourselves. There's certain sacred things. Then you have the fathers, mothers, the brothers, the nieces, the sisters, whatever. Well, my dad never talked about the war. I don't know anything about it. Well, this gives them a chance to understand some of the things and why he didn't talk.
Yeah, that's true. I think it is important for younger kids, too,
And I
for them
think
to see what's happening,
Right.
and not to get involved maybe in that type of thing again, in that situation again.
I think it's
And I think,
cross-generational, right?
You pointed out something. We both have a gift as artists, and not to use that gift and take the most obscene thing we'll ever see in our life and turn it into something useful would be as tragic and obscene as the event itself.
Yeah.
And so we have a certain responsibility to go beyond our own anger, to understand our anger, and perhaps in the long run, help a kid 500 years from now say, just say no.
Just say no.
500 years or 5 years, you never know.
Just say
You
no.
never know. Well, I guess that kind of captures the spirit of the show. Leslie, would you say?
I couldn't have put it any better. I mean, what they are saying is the reasons that this show exists. I might add that I don't think it could have happened earlier, because I think if it could have happened earlier, it would have. There's you might call it the rest between two heartbeats, that you just need that pause, and in terms of human history, that it takes 20 years for that to happen really is a blink of an eye. So.
Well, it is happening now, and it's happening through March 3rd at the Humboldt Cultural Center. I'm sure you guys would all encourage people to come see it.
Absolutely.
Already have.
Yeah.
And I'd like to thank our three guests for joining us on this segment of Impact, Joey Cusimano, Leslie Freeland, and Steve Miller. I think you guys are great, and I hope the show is a tremendous success.
Thank you, Pete.
Thanks a
Thanks,
lot.
Peter.
Pleasure having you folks here.
Terrific.
We have two more guests joining us on this second segment on healing the wounds. Joining us are Don Edwards, a local veteran and a poet, and Dan Krejci, team leader at the Redwood Vet Center in Eureka. I'd like to welcome both to Impact, and thank you for being here. We'd like to start off this segment very similar to the way we started off the first segment. We'd like to ask Don to give us one of his poems.
This poem I decided to do is called Nothing. And when we were in Vietnam, a saying that we had was, "It don't mean nothing." And that was kind of a way just to put away whatever you felt or not have to deal with it right then. You just, it don't mean nothing, and you went on to whatever you had to do. Anyway, I wrote this poem called Nothing that kind of states how I felt about war. It's 4 verses. It goes, bodies of millions, none wanting to die on a cold, lonely summer afternoon, casting no shadows as the sun passes by, a lot of future that passed by too soon. From the ocean's bottom to the endless high, the sunlight paints the picture, as tomorrow's last breath leaves with a sigh. The past, not recalled, leaves the future. Not a bird flying in the overhead sky, many forests of crumbling trees, silence to answer the breaking waves on the shores of the poison seas. Dark is this cavern of the blinded eyes, no end to what isn't in sight. A tool of man's that silenced all cries, he finally gained peace with a fight.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you. I'd like to talk to both of you about a little bit about healing the wounds to the show that's at the Cultural Center, but also about what the Vet Center is all about. I'd like to throw a question to you, Dan. If you can tell us what the reaction is, if you know, of local vets to the show that's coming up.
Oh, so far it's been very favorable. Matter of fact, I say there's been a lot of excitement about it, and there's been a lot of excitement generally in the community. When we first decided to do the show, we got real rapid response in terms of people providing funding and whatever assistance that we needed. We got a lot of people that were real interested in it. People from the Arts Council were almost immediately jumped on the bandwagon and wanted to offer us the Cultural Center and all that. So it's been very good from anybody.
Well, you haven't had to twist any arms, huh?
No, I haven't had to twist any arms.
That's great. That's great. Don, your poems are going to be in the show. You have two poems in the show.
Right. And 2 sculptures.
And 2 sculptures, too. Ah, great. That's great. Can you just give me a little bit of feedback how you feel about being involved in something like this?
It's, you know, I've been carrying these poems around for 20 years, and very few people have ever heard them. So it's kind of neat being able to get it out there. I always called that poem my poster poem. I wanted everybody to see it because I felt it made a real definite statement about what war was all about.
You bet.
So this is a chance to do that, you know. And it's more of a, and it's a motivator for me. I've always wanted to write a novel about my Vietnam experience. And this is kind of a motivator for me. That the interest that is shown, for me personally, will help me to get on the stick and do that.
You bet. You bet. Well, the show's called Healing the Wounds, and I think that's part of what the Vet Center is all about. Maybe you can give us a little bit of information about your experience with the Vet Center.
Well, I'm an alcoholic, and I was running into trouble with the law from drinking and driving, and I had to go to classes for it. So rather than go to an AA class, I had just heard about the Vet Center and the RAP group, to have a group where veterans just go on, I believe it's Tuesday nights, and just sit and talk, you know, and they don't have to talk about anything. It's just a bunch of brothers getting together. And I did that for a while, for probably 6 months, and then they started closed therapy groups, which is about 8 or 10, 12 vets, and we go into a closed group. We're the only ones in the group, and we're in the group for 12 weeks, and we do group therapy with 2 facilitators there from the center. And I've been doing that for 3 years, and it's really turned my life around. I no longer drink, and I'm now happily married. My wife, you know, has stuck with me through all of it, and now we're getting to reap the reward from it, and a lot of it goes from what these guys have been doing.
That's outstanding.
And I could never, when I lived in Southern Humboldt, I called up to the VA one time and asked them, I said, I really need counseling, I really need some help. And whoever the lady was on the phone said, I said, is there any available down here in Southern Humboldt? And they said, no, but we'll send you a form where you can ask for assistance to get private. And I never got the form. I mean, you know, and so that's kind of, so I was reaching out and there was nobody there. And then it's hard enough just dealing with the man to begin with, going back and talking to the government for help, you know, the Vet Center is Vietnam veterans, helping Vietnam veterans.
So this was a place that was openly, the doors were open to you, right? Right. Do you feel comfortable with recommending this to other vets? The Vet
absolutely,
Center? Absolutely.
I wrote a little poem just recently called The Difference, and it goes, the difference between hot and cold is warm. The difference between positive and negative is neutral ground. The difference between where you have been and where you are going is now. And I think what we all need is a little warm, neutral ground now. And I believe that's what the Vet Center is for me.
Delightful.
So,
let's bring Dan into a little bit. Dan, besides the services that Don's mentioned, what other services does the Vet Center provide for Vietnam vets?
I think Don's mentioned couples counseling. We do quite a bit of that, and we have a significant others group for the wives or girlfriends or however you want to describe that.
Let's them talk?
Veterans. It's a group all for them. Recently, we've started children's therapy, and we have an interest in a group for the children of veterans. And we have a student that's coming over from Humboldt State University that's in their pupil personnel program.
Right.
And so that's what he's doing.
So you're trying to take care of the entire family.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's going real well. I mean, we've been having a lot of veterans come in, and a lot of good results, and I think on what we're doing. It has a lot to do with the motivation of the staff and the dedication of the staff, and how well we get along. I think the staff, for one thing, really cares for one another.
That helps immensely, because I'm sure it's a tough job. It's
sure.
a tough deal.
Yes, it is.
If I can kind of pull you guys into a little bit about the show again, about healing the wounds. What are your hopes from this? What do you hope is accomplished through this exhibit, the people that see it? Do you feel like this is a way to somehow let people know that Vietnam vets are a wide variety of people with a wide variety of skills, or what exactly do you hope this accomplishes?
Well, the wounds are the consequences of trauma. And actually, I've seen the artwork, and I think a lot of the artwork is a demonstration of what trauma is all about for these people that were in Vietnam. And that's what I think a lot of people in society and a lot of local people need to understand, is what the impact of trauma has been and war is on the individuals that had an opportunity, if you want to call it that, to serve, and an opportunity to be engaged in a combat situation.
So I guess Humboldt County is going to get a great expression of that through March 3rd.
And certainly to have an opportunity to see some very, very creative Vietnam veterans and their works.
That's
no
great.
question about that.
That's great. Listen, I'd like to thank you both. I'm sorry we didn't have more time to talk with you, but it was a pleasure having you both on the show. Again, I hope that the exhibit is well attended and well received, and I wish you all the best of luck with the Vet Center.
Thank
and
you.
Write that novel. Write that novel.
I will.
I'd like to invite our listeners and our viewers to let us know what you think about this program and ideas for future programs by calling our feedback line at 445-5783. My name is Peter Buckley, and I'll see you once again as we take a look at the issues and events of concern of people on the North Coast with Keats Impact. Thanks for being with us tonight. We'll see you next week.
This Sunday only, Impact will be rebroadcast at 5 p.m. Now stay tuned for the McLaughlin Group.